Welcome, cadets, to Starfleet Academy, a Star Trek podcast by Phantastic Geek. My name is Matt, and all rise for Admiral Pete. Hello, Pete.
Where are you on the tomato debate? Starfleet Academy, a Star Trek podcast by Phantastic Geek, for episode 5, series Acclimation Mil, comes to you now via the sacred ritual of the Cometa fish.
And just a bit of fleet news before we arrive in the episode. Pete, mere hours from now will not only be the Super Bowl sports football game, but also the real reason that we will all be watching the anticipated reveal of the Star Wars Mandalorian and Grogu trailer.
No idea if it'll be actually run over the air. I'm guessing it might be go to the internet now for full trailer. But yeah, we're 3 months away, believe it or not, from a Star Wars movie, and now the marketing will ramp up in earnest.
Yes, I both I knew it was this May, but also consciously hadn't looked at it as 3 months away. Yes, we need to ramp up the marketing. Yes, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. And Pete, staying with Disney for a moment, we had a hearty, thoughtful Marvel discussion yesterday, talking the second half of Wonder Man episodes.
Yes, Marvel sitting the Super Bowl out, having just dropped a complete series all at once, hence our front and back half coverage. Really enjoyed talking about that. So, despite a lot of speculation, Matt, no Spider-Man, no Doomsday, no Daredevil. Daredevil next up, of course, for Marvel.
I am surprised to hear that. I don't doubt your words, but that's an interesting choice, Pete. Maybe it's in line with the perceived lateness of a Mandalorian Grogu trailer. Maybe they're going for shorter term, bigger volume of advertising. But meanwhile, Pete, okay, this next note here, I guess we could add it to the just the chaos, the red alert nature of pop culture in the last week. I see that at DC Studios, Supergirl is continuing to test. Oh man, Pete, does that mean that it's in trouble, that it's terrible, that it's going to be canceled? What's the status?
You do test screenings, right? And like details leak out of test screenings. It's kind of understood in the process. Nothing to see here, except of course if you're watching those test screenings.
Yes, indeed, part of the process. And I guess also part of the process, Pete, can you believe here we are halfway through the first season of Starfleet Academy and bringing things back to Star Trek? They're down to filming the end of season 2.
Yeah, episodes 9 and 10 about to go before the cameras up in the greater Toronto area. This episode that I've sat on details for a year, finally able to talk about.
And let's just be mindful now. I guess we can officially start the clock for the next 6, 8, 10 months in the world of Star Trek. What is this new Skydance leadership going to do with the current shows? I mean, we know what they've done with Strange New Worlds. Also, there's the possibility that it becomes, Kirky or One or whatever one wants to call it. What does Skydance do with the Kurtzman leadership thought to run through this August? Either way, a reminder that the current shows in the can, and will include the end of Academy Season 2, those can run through 2027. So if there is, let's say, a leadership change, we're still not going to see that maybe for till towards the end of 2027 and so forth. So interesting times abounding there. And now class is in session.
Static crackles as Sam tries to make contact with someone not in a CBS Studios production, but a story about her intended because her intended audience is the only one who could possibly understand. As she walks the halls of the Academy, she recaps the events of the last week, but not before some added context. In the last 1,000 years, the Federation has encountered 4,633 sentient species. That's over 37 trillion individuals, but only one her. She was created 217 days ago on Cask. She's been at the Academy for 97 of those days. And as we're treated to a number of her nicknames, Matt, there it is, a Klingon not in pants.
Pete, Gene would never do this, except for when Gene Roddenberry did it. Um, I will say this, Pete. I don't want to say we've been sitting on this detail, but back when we saw there were two booths that had Starfleet Academy things at New York Comic Con this past October. One was the proper Academy installation, which was a ton of fun, and then there was one focusing on costumes. I think you could buy the boots,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the entire costumes. Um, and they had life size, cutouts or pictures of the characters. And there we saw Jaden Cragg wearing a skirt, bothering neither. Again, picture, not in person, bothering neither you nor I. But we knew one day, Pete, that there would be some people who probably don't watch this show who are going to be upset by the notion of Jaden Cragg in a skirt. And Pete, it has now happened in the last couple days.
Moving on from false outrage, Matt, Sam will be Cask's future emissary to the Federation, and it falls to her to explain organics to her photonic makers, who have never left their world. So the nuances of things like priority one missions that cadets never refuse, even if they should, like the eating of a weird hash that we pause here for a moment to analyze. It's a real meta presentation to this episode. The diagramming that it has chicken, banana, and something called Yule pudding in it. And that Darum, who we find out from his personnel file, is 17, hates bananas because the Chionian overproduces polyphenol oxidase, causing high potassium foods to rot the second they're ingested. And he vomits glitter, something else that upset people this week. In a franchise that over 60 years has had little furball aliens and plotters and all sorts of other silly things. But we're going to draw the line at vomiting glitter in a made up space show.
I didn't even know this was a source of controversy. I mean,
Oh my goodness. Don't go on the Reddit.
if we're going to have an Academy series and we're going to have, in this case, dumb boy hijinks of, you know, can you eat the thing that's loaded with hot sauce and jalapeno peppers, except you're an alien, so it's bananas. Like if we're
What
going to do
one chip
that,
challenge?
yeah, exactly. And okay, Kaonians vomit glitter. Pete, that makes it a better scene than if it was like, okay, now let's give the actor the chicken soup. Okay, 3, 2, 1, action. Spit up chicken soup that looks like
Yeah, I'd
like.
rather watch somebody vomit glitter than like to me that's better.
And like this
I'd
is
rather
what you.
not watch anyone vomit at all
Yes, yes.
since it's my ick. But yeah.
This is what you get when you get aliens, and it's a reminder that he's an alien. I saw something in passing in the last week. Nobody, they don't take makeup seriously on this show because blah blah blah. Look, I'd rather have Darum in his human form as a supporting member of the cast versus him wearing the whole blue fish guy space repellent whatever. Like, come on, can't we have fun? I'm not
They
saying
they don't take makeup seriously to the point where Tawny Newsome was in a chair for 5 hours a day and doesn't know if she wants to do that again because she never had. Like when
Uh,
they could have cut corners.
uh, agreed, agreed, agreed. But we'll get there. We get there. I know this, Pete. I saw much respected Chiwetel Ejiofor in the credits, and then here he is as the voice of the singular voice of the Bakers, plural, who is able to do this really novel way to communicate, where it's kind of mentally inside Sam that the contact is made. Also, it's kind of inside of time, and I guess you get to do that when you're a synthetic entity and so forth. Again, no complaint. It's just an interesting way to present communication and present it within the moment, and not to say, let me step away to take this phone call. Um, but the contact here made by the makers, explain your purpose of your music elective. And she gives background both to her society, that they were once created to be servants. So now, long since independent, the makers do not trust organics. As for this music elective, she plays the theremin, music generated by electromagnetic fields, which she notes are cool. The makers do not approve of music, but she's trying to figure out unusual organic behavior, particularly here, Darum putting down the laser tape line, if you will, of the atrium splitting up. Our side is Academy, your side is War College. Nice reminder, Pete, that War College has to be taking classes in the Academy building because of the plant episode that has displaced them and so forth. So we always kind of knew it was going to be, our squad versus your squad, and I do like that one benefit of that plant episode was now it's forcing War College v Academy, even in the atrium and the halls and the classrooms, etc.
Yeah, to get that carryover about the Vetus reflux there that we will catch up about even further later in the episode. But forget that organic, intangible behavior there. We go up further in the atrium there, and there's some increased blood flow to Caleb's Jumbo stick.
It was nice to see a Deep Space Nine era Jumja stick. Another way to put it is Caleb is enjoying his Jumja stick while looking at Tarima. That's all literal, Pete. No metaphor. Well, maybe some metaphor on some level. Regardless, amusing moment here. I don't want to quite say a Star Trek go to, but here Sam is, as the outsider, not understanding the ways of these folks, asking Caleb and Tarima separately about sensual desire and how it all works. And as for their mutual attraction, they are keeping a low profile because, Pete, they want the people at home to ship them and to hope for them, or maybe they just want to take us on a journey, and no one episode is going to move too fast in that regard.
Not at all here. Um, but the discussion between Sam and her makers, a lot of people pointing out, reminiscent of Mork and Mindy, the way that he spoke to his species. Um, they have plans for Sam to take the confronting the unexplainable course, where they believe that she will find all the answers and to enroll immediately, bringing her to the classroom where we see the guardian of forever, an immortal, non-corporeal entities entry there for that class. There's Katra stones visible, all sorts of other things, but it is the information about Cisco there. Another emissary, that identification with him for Sam, that's critical in this episode, with the mysteries of, did he die in the fire caves of Bejor? Did he live on in the Celestial Temple? What happened to him? But wait a minute, there's a professor there with a familiar voice and an even more familiar way of carrying herself.
Indeed, Professor Illa, played by Tawny Newsome, her third Star Trek
Isla.
series. Pardon me, Isla. And joining the class this year simply cannot be done. It's past midterms. However, Sam has a plan. She's going to solve Benjamin Sisko's mystery here. Isla recaps Sisko's history. There's a lot to it there. Indeed, if you solve this mystery, Sam could even teach the class. So, getting reiterated here at the end of the teaser act, Sam will figure out what happened to Benjamin Sisko. Boom, credits. Purpose of the
No
episode
big,
framed, etc.
no big deal, right? Just easily done. Um, we cut back to Sam explaining to her classmates as she's brought them some stuff here. She's got the children's book about the emissary of the prophets and functioning as the framing mechanism for the uninitiated, her classmates, to explain what's gone on with the prophets, with Cisco. And I really like the solve that they came up with for Avery Brooks, who's been retired for 20 years from acting. Um, Image not appearing, treating this like you would our real world prophets.
As well as there's, I think, compelling discussion in this episode. It's not, this is an episode that touches on the notion of faith, but does not necessarily dig particularly deep into it. However, we have this discussion here amongst the cadets. Jaden says, almost in a logical sense, Cisco must be dead. Genesis says that Cisco is still considered MIA. She knows that from her father. I have a question about that later. Darum notes he's a Schrodinger's prophet, both dead and alive, here and not here. And Caleb contributing that though Cisco is dead, he's the backbone of a faith. The implication being, let's kind of tread a little lightly here. Hey, nobody here is a Bajoran. Let's talk to some Bajorans. So, Pete, take us to Bajor Club.
Where immediately Sam goes too far, gripping the ear of a Bajoran and trying to figure out how to greet people. But she's told that her pa is strong and that she has all these questions for the members of the club, which quickly escalate to her in Chancellor Ake's office because she took things just a little too far.
And I appreciate that clearly in between the escalation of Sam's questions and standing at the Chancellor's desk here, clearly, whatever happened in the middle, it was like, and now go to the Chancellor's office or she's summoned. Like, clearly it's gotten worse before it's going to get better. But I appreciate here that Ake is trying to understand the conflict, understand the misunderstanding here. It's not immediately like, listen to me, cadet, you always got to respect this, that, the other. It's not an Ake episode, but it's able to illuminate her nonetheless. She notes, Ake does, that the Bajorans don't show Cisco's images anymore as they believe he has transcended. But keep asking questions so that you can learn more about yourself, which for Sam is not exactly the mission she thought she was on. And Ake says that Sam must know herself in order to know others. But let's try the Cisco Museum, which you could beam to in about 4 seconds. However, we're going to do the virtual museum because some sets are already standing. And Pete, it's like the biggest Star Trek set of all time and cost a lot of money. So it's actually easier to bring in props and to do them. Which, that said, I know we've seen the classroom set quite a bit, and we've had a little fun saying when is it a little too much, etc. This is a really, really nice use of those, projections on the walls, all those details. It really felt like a museum space without being a brand new build that had to have the logic of a museum space because it's transported to the classroom. But Pete, we're not headed there yet. There's an issue in engineering.
Yes, not a lunch day here for Ake because there are issues with the power supply bringing her to Kelrec, where he is using resources to heat part of the ocean, uh, a small lagoon therein, using unauthorized alien tech to gently heat that small lagoon therein because the Alpharati, who are brilliant military strategists that he has an audience with, Chancellor Amal of the planet Alpharat, brings their protective fire eels wherever they go.
Among other things, one minor detail that I noticed for this episode, maybe detail is the wrong word, but the breadth of supporting characters and indeed featured extras. That's not Kelrec, he's a recurring character, recurring actor, but this feels like such a lived in place, and not because there's scratches on the walls and scuffs here and there. To see some of these same cadets in the background over and over again, to have frankly a B story here that ends up being a chance to get to know Kelrec better and a chance to have a funny as we loop in Ake and Kelrec, and then in a little bit the Doctor, and the soup business. All that we'll be talking about shortly. It's a chance to get to know Kelrec better, and I don't know that that's a natural place for the story to go. But I'm not complaining in any way. It's just great to have this sense that there's so many people here, and at any moment, it could be Ake's been hit by a plasma beam. She's out. Kelrec, take command, and we would say, "Oh, I know him well enough for him to take command in this situation." Or Cadet Orion guy with red hair. Now you get lines because the story calls for it, and it's just there's an authenticity here that this B story is working on beyond. We're going to give something for the grown-ups to do, and we're going to give them some funnies.
The opportunity to make Kelrec three-dimensional, right? Before just kind of a foil for Ake. And now that she can see his foibles, that he's sweating, that he's trying to make this audience perfect, and she's going to help him. And even his suspicion there, well, why would you help me? Well, that is what Starfleet does. By the way, let's check in on those Vetus reflux that should be in their off-gassing stage by now, but he doesn't want to talk about that. And as a digital asset, we don't bring those in this week, even though they had the physical Seymour style plants that were kind of like puppets in the little pots there. Um, but she's going to help him out, and therein begins uh, the bridge, right? That mirrors what Sam is trying to do with Task.
And indeed, back to Sam. She's set up the virtual access for the Cisco Museum. Uh, Again, just details in every corner. This needs to be the next convention installation that those great people at Paramount PR do. But Sam beholds the uniform. I appreciate that it's looking a little shabby. I have no idea, Pete, whether it's an original from 1999, whether it's made to be a bit beat up, but it looks appropriately hundreds and hundreds of years old. She learns that Cisco lived a predetermined path, and she wonders if we must do what we're told. I love all the details in the museum space here, some of which we see her visit, some of which we don't. There's of course the baseball items. There's the typewriter, Pete, the typewriter from that
Mm-hmm.
fantastic episode, as well as the orb box, which I'm sure, Pete, if you're a professional prop maker, you can look at the stills or the leftover blueprints or whatever is in the Paramount archive and make a new one. But my goodness, if that, to my eyes, it was like, there it is, it's back. It's the exact same one that we've seen. We've seen that box so many times. Um, and I like that she tries to talk to Cisco through the orb. I'm watching it going, it didn't work as a telephone in Deep Space Nine. But of course, she can't communicate to him through this. He can't hear her, even though it is, she's trying to communicate in a um, quasi technological way. It is, of course, a kind of prayer as well in an episode that is just doing a really lovely job of, again, talking about faith and technology and now and what's in your heart and what you can see in science, and all of that is kind of wrapped up here, but none of it is the science versus faith episode.
We need to give a ton of credit to Carice Brooks carrying out Tawny Newsom's mission here to correct the error of not getting back to Deep Space Nine, and in particular, this mystery of what happened to Benjamin Sisko. That the plan was never we're going to solve it. It's not meant to be solved. That's not the goal of this episode. Um, but just the lovely letter that this represents to Deep Space Nine, um, and here the digital version of what's inside the orb and how we've taken that further since that show originally aired. But of course, Sam's prayer goes unanswered here. It goes dark, and then she looks at the family tree, um, and a lot of interesting details there. There's some non corporeal beings that are connected with you know people on the family tree and everything else. And we see Cassidy Yates listed as well, but we're going to click on Jake Sisko, and what a lovely, lovely moment that this yields.
It is shot wonderfully. It is a wonderful conceit that there is a hollow recording of him as an adult. Of course, he's long since an adult. Like, it's one of those things where you go, this is such an easy idea. How has no one reached for it before? I'm not. I mean, I know I just called it easy. I guess easy might not be the right word. Just there it is. It's a natural conclusion once you see it in action. Essentially, though, he's a hollow recording, live in the flesh to us. And of course, the hollow recording is looking off to the side at the speaker or the audience. And I love that Sam moves to that space, so it becomes a dialogue of sorts as he reflects on the example of his father, who, among other things, taught Jake, showed love to Jake in a way that taught Jake how to love his own children. Just beautiful scene here. It leaves you wanting more. It's almost like they wrote it because we're going to get more of Jake in a little bit. Um, and Pete, I'll just mention, since you brought up Tony Newsom as the co-writer for the script, Kirsten Beyer, the other writer here, we had pondered on the Wonder Man podcast yesterday. At what point does a production know when it's going to be released? Sometimes they don't know at all. Release schedule, all of those factors that are exterior to get your script in by next Tuesday, and we'll do notes, and we're going to final draft it in 2 weeks time. All of those X factors, right? To have this episode be the first episode of February, the first Star Trek episode of February, Black History Month, an episode that has in Tawny Newsome a black writer. Obviously, we're bringing back Jake. We're looking at the legacy of Avery Brooks and the legacy of Benjamin Sisko. It's a very Star Trek thing
Yep.
to present this episode when it was, without it being the episode that's the special Black History Month episode. It's such a deft touch here throughout the episode, throughout clearly the production, nay, throughout the release.
And to have Sirach Lofton, right? Okay, with Avery Brooks' blessing, returning to this role. Sirach Lofton, who podcasts Star Trek himself, um, to be able to do this. Like, it's just a confluence of so many things, so long overdue, but as you mentioned, made even more special about the significance of when it's available.
And Sam moves on into the atrium, offering an update to the professor. I love this notion here that part of as they're talking some of the particulars about Benjamin and Jake and their pasts, both actors' backs are to us. Maybe that's just how the director wanted to shoot it on the day. Maybe that's the edit. But what we don't get are reaction shots because we are, of course, hiding a little bit of a reveal towards the end of the episode here. And then the discussion turns to the notion of tomatoes in gumbo. Benjamin, Pete, a first name basis that did not fully catch my ears with the first time I watched this episode. Benjamin grew them in his quarters. And the takeaway here for Sam, what we love, helps determine who we are.
Yeah. Some special stuff so that she brings all the snacks here, all the meals to her classmates, all these staples, whether it's the gumbo, the aubergine stew, the etouffee, and digging into all of this courtesy the family restaurant and the recipes. Sam can't experience it, however, and Caleb is going to try accessing her programming to attempt to make that happen and give her that opportunity. Her programming that he notes is incredibly sexy.
Yet another modern Star Trek scene where you get to type in fake holographic air and then they put the effects in later. He seemed to do a really good job, or the effects artist did a good job making things line up and so forth. Um, and though we don't get the tasting of food here, hair changing, clothes changing, the music that she hears, um, obviously we're sticking a pin in that for a little bit later. We also have Sam's version of Rock the Gino, which Jaden says is terrible. I couldn't quite tell whether he was spitting out water or whether it was something slightly more kind of globby. I couldn't,
Viscous.
yeah, viscous. Like I couldn't, it kind of looked viscous, but then it didn't. Regardless, just a great character moment. There's so much in this show, not just this episode, where I feel like they do not lose track of the fact that these are all characters that can have little character moments that don't need to be because you are star of the episode, special Jaden flashback, special Sam story. You know, just the way he spits it out and says, it is terrible. It's so
Lest
authentically Jaden.
we forget, there are 2 episodes until the cement's really kind of set when it comes to a series, right? 7 episodes in, you're frozen, okay? Um, so to have these affectations and then further that Jaden is aware of the rumor that Jaco was writing a book and Slelm, which in Bajoran means father. Uh, Not a deep cut, but certainly lore within the show. The shows here carried over, for all the false outrage about Starfleet Academy, about this episode in particular. What did you make this for young people? Why do we want them watching a 60-year-old franchise? Because the people who were olds when the original show have died. Um, you know, you cannot argue that this is not made by people who are beyond passionate about Star Trek and even more knowledgeable.
Oh, and I mean, you have a Kirsten Beyer script. They're always special and they're always steeped in lore or connected to the larger understanding here.
Well,
Um,
listen, for all the bouquets that Pawnee Newsome has gotten, this is her first produced script. She went out of her way to credit, and she said that more people need to have Kirsten Byers' name in their mouths. So from you, from me, from everybody else, need to have that as well. I mean, what a special episode to have this be your first produced credit. Yes, she is working on an untitled um, Star Trek live action comedy. We don't know that they're fully moving forward at this point. Probably a little tied up in what's going on with the Kurtzman, um, secret hideout situation. Um, but these people know the characters, they know the universe, and any attempt to punch down and say that oh this is not done respectfully like is so far in the opposite direction.
I'm reminded of the story behind the production of the Lower Decks episode where the story goes to Deep Space Nine. And look, the first two seasons of Lower Decks, everybody did their voice recording at home because of COVID. So while it was a collaborative and cohesive production, it wasn't like, oh man, I look forward to Mondays at 10 a.m. when the whole cast rolls on into the conference room at Lower Decks and we all have cookies and then record and have a great time. When Tawny Newsome found out that her character of Mariner was not going to Deep Space Nine, but instead was going to stay on the ship, which was at Deep Space Nine. She called up Mike McMahon, I think it was a Zoom or something like that, and basically chewed him out. And I'm reading this story going, you're chewing out the guy that runs the show who, like, again, it's an animated thing to sit and go, oh man, we're replacing Mariner. Like, there's all sorts of stuff that could go wrong. But she was advocating for her character and advocating for a certain kind of story and advocating for Deep Space Nine. And what's she doing here in her script? A big factor was we need to shine a light on the mythos, the majesty of Deep Space Nine, and we can do it through this episode. Somewhere along the way, she's become an associate producer on this, as you say, working on other stuff. Like Tawny Newsome is, I don't want to say breaking glass ceilings, but she's elbowing her way into Star Trek in a really wonderful way. Pete, it's almost like, I think Benjamin Sisko would enjoy her because he liked people. What's the line at the end? He liked people that cause trouble in a good way, and that's
Yeah,
Tawny Newsome to a T.
yeah, we need Tawny Newsome at this date and time. But Darum knows that there used to be a Starfleet bar, the launching pad, where Cisco might have got punched by a Vulcan once. Um, Now aptly named the Academy, which Genesis knows it's her first planet. She walks around all the time.
Let's go. But not right now because the narrative literally stops as Sam is pulled into the maker conversation or conversations with the makers. Again, the whole singular plural. I'm still getting my head wrapped around, but time pausing as she does so. If you fail this mission to understand organics, you're going to be returning to the planet, never leave again. The clock is ticking. So, though we're about to go have, a frivolous time at the bar, I think that this check in here with the makers is a great reminder. Sam, you are on a mission, and if you get it wrong, you're off the show, you're off the academy, you're off your path in life. So time to go find out what happens at bars, but still not yet, Pete. Where are we headed?
That literal story clock flashing across the screen there. But let's go to the sacred ritual of the Kamita fish here. We've got the doctor into the loudspeakers. This is Tawny Newsome's fingerprints all over this scene.
Doubly with her comedy background. Um, yeah, the Kamita fish that looks like a blobfish and just looks terrible. Reno is there. She's never heard of any of this, which on second view, there might be a little implied, kick under the table. Yeah, it's because well, we'll get there. We get there. They're all there to help Kelrick understand how a meal like this should go. Any laughter is taken as a huge offense, so let's play it straight, says the doctor. Well, the first part anyway, he says. Ake starts with an English accent. Soon they're having soup with spoons that have holes in them. Um, and it's all about, now, Kelrek, share some things about yourself. Um, though the humor here is so quiet. Now it's time for musical performances. Pete, on first view, none of this plays like a prank, which I really appreciate. We've seen plenty of weird Star Trek things where now Picard has to wear a doily in his head, or now Archer has to, with no shirt, do a chainsaw art, or like we've seen this kind of thing before. Where you have to put up with it. So the comedy is hidden from we the audience.
Reno playing two roles here: the secret's guardian and the sacred gift pig. Until finally we're getting towards the point of honesty, right? Like that Kelrek needs to get at. But we pause there to go to the academy, not the academy, but the other academy, the bar, where so anxious to experience gumbo and sensations here, Caleb reprograms Sam so that every tap here will be like having a shot, and she's up to 12.
Which is more than one should have, even if you are a synthetic person. That much is certainly true. But Pete, it's not just the Academy people at the Academy. Hey, writing room, let's rebrand the bar to a slightly less confusing name. Just long term, I think that'll work out well. Um, Cadet Kyle, from the War College, he's there. He's happy to see everybody. Again, I love the conceit. War College Romulan and War College Vulcan are always very like, rah, 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 my side, your side. Kyle's just, maybe he has an interest in Jaden Cragg, as we will explore in a bit. Or Kyle is just, he chose War College. He's here to War College, man. You guys are doing your academy stuff. I, again, I just love. I love that he's the exception to the out of town team rule that they've put in place here.
But Star Trek drag queen Jackie Cox is there, Matt, to diffuse the situation.
They are all, of course, uh, legally old enough to drink, as per the rules of, I guess, the municipality of San Francisco, which is an important reminder there. Um, and we bring in some of the other characters here. Genesis grabs Sam while Caleb and Tarima make eyes across the room. Sam can tell that Caleb and Tarima want to, and she does some hand motions, and Caleb says, make a panini, and she says, yes. Which, if you look back, yeah, it's make a panini. I think Sam might need a special health class elective just to get it caught up to speed, but um, back at the bar, Jaden and Kyle chat about their impressive bearings with each other. And we go back to Ake's dinner. Here's a chance for Kelrek to play the flute. It's not very good. It's slow and loud with many notes. Perhaps evocative of, there's a line like that in the Amadeus movie. But time to list the attributes about the guest of honor. Here's to working together. He looks forward to the future. With that, the fish deflates and lets out. Pete, can we say a whistle? It sounds a bit rather like flatus as well.
Yes.
And all laugh except Kelrek because it was a prank all along.
Sometimes the fish does that, though. Um, but his loss of trust in this group, um, really something that they come to understand. Okay, we went a little far, but the ability to adapt. Kelrek, the early characterization is this military man so set in his ways, right? And that he picks at Nala's wound, somebody who abandoned Starfleet 15 years ago, right? Um, and that pierces her, armor, and to the point that the Doctor and Reno look at one another, and something that we're continuing to explore here. But he follows up that, a lanthanite, somebody with such a long life, how can your memory be that short? And storms off.
I appreciate not only are we getting kind of authentic character stuff here, but I think it's a nice little guidepost for the story to say we are going to do more with this somehow. I think that we, as presented in the pilot, we understand the time there, the time away, the time to come back. Uh, it's great that it's just part of the evolving discussion here. But we go back to the bar, or rather outside it, where Tarima and Caleb get their moment together. She's enjoying his game of will he, won't he. It's a very good moment with handheld close ups. Pete, someone's better at directing the camera operators in this episode than Kurtzman was in the shaky cam madness of the second episode. She ultimately kisses him. In the bar, Sam notes that the Cisco wanted to be Ben and have a good time and build sailboats and start riots. We all understood that reference, those references. Elsewhere in the bar, Kyle and Jaden are dancing. Darum says it's time to go. You're slumming it. No, says War College guy. Maybe it's Kyle who's slumming it with Jaden. Sam appears, ready to start a bar fight, and indeed starts throwing punches. Everyone pauses until Sam attacks more, with the one tattooed War College cadet being thrown out the door, interrupting the kissing couple. And with that, it's party time with your fists.
Yes, to the point where we flash forward to the doctor's, it's not his quarters, it's his little clinic here, a redress of one of these um, classroom style sets, uh, to check out the damage to our cadets. Caleb, of course, dialing back the program on Sam so that she's sober, but still wants a burrito.
I like that they forego kind of a hangover type thing that would have been one yuck too far. But the doctor sends everyone back to their quarters except Sam. The doctor is disappointed in her. Good story instinct to not say, because I am photonic and you are photonic. We kind of had that last week with like species looking out for like species. Here it's kind of implied, or at the very least just from the doctor's authority. The doctor never met Cisco, but his creator, Dr. Zimmerman, met him once. I remember that crossover. It was delightful. The doctor knew Jake later on, which is just, we don't need to do more with this. We don't need to have the special comic spinoff, or there's probably going to be a novel at some point, or we don't need to do more with it. It's just lovely to fill in the timeline a little bit there. Then Pete and I would like to propose that we give as little focus to this as possible. There's a Digital Dean joke about wood that is incredibly lame. I would argue out of place and not that funny. And then the fact that the Digital Dean, Stephen Colbert, is laughing at his own joke.
Yeah,
There's your example of it's too much. They need to pull it back. Please, oh please.
I've been to Muir Woods. Let's just let the majesty of that sink in rather than the crudité, if you will. Um, but here, despite the fact that they don't have really, really big space to go through, we get a long, slow elevator ride so we can have the conversation with Ake on the couch.
Lengthy lift conversations in Star Trek are a dime a dozen. I'm glad you pointed it out, Pete, but it's not worth, gnashing teeth or that sort of thing. Thus is the nature of the storytelling. Um, Back in the classroom, the classroom. I didn't even mean that as a joke. But back in the classroom, Sam tells Isla that Sam has failed, but failure can be fun. It doesn't matter how the Cisco died or if he died. His existence was planned for him by aliens who can fail as well. Isla shares something, Jake's last book about his father. She has a copy. Sam reads it, and I love that we don't need to overly explain here as the words kind of leap out of it, that the words are becoming alive in her mind. And indeed, in her mind's eye, she speaks with Jake in the flesh. He shows her the Kendra Valley on Bajor, site of a house for father and son. But it's not awful. Benjamin married Cassidy, despite the prophets saying not to. He did things his own way. Emissaries build connections, and sacrifices are worth it. Lose lose can be win win. And Sam asks if he will disappear if she closes the book, but isn't she controlling this conversation? And it's everything that it needs to be. It's magically presented, but not confusingly so. And just another great moment here.
The bond between father and son, the love of family here, something Sam really doesn't have yet, right? And that's the promise of this series is the found family she's going to develop, whether it'll be Ake as mom or Isla as, crazy aunt before the reveal here in a moment. Um, but that love that Jake had for his father, that Cyric has for Avery Brooks, um, just completely present throughout this scene. And despite the fact that Sam laments, it seems that all emissaries do is sacrifice. His point here that sometimes lose lose is actually win win.
Outside of Sam's imagination, she checks in with Isla. Where's this book from? Isla was asked to keep it safe and only share it with those who would understand how to use it. Sam asks how Isla knew that Cisco grew tomatoes. None of that was in the database. And Isla pushes her hair back, showing trill markings. And Isla isn't her surname. When you take the course next semester or next year, look for it under her full name, Isla Dax.
Yeah, I mean, it could only work this way, right? And cue the lamentation that, oh, Trill symbiotes do not live this long. What have you done to my Star Trek yet again? The idea that this is done with utter reverence towards a trio of characters from Deep Space Nine, something that to this point in this era of Star Trek has gotten shockingly little representation. So the need to correct that and people saying, well, what have you done to my Star Trek?
Um, the scene continues here with Dax saying Benjamin would have loved you. Cut to Sam playing the theremin and addressing the makers, talking about organics have the path of becoming, and the music turns to the Star Trek theme. I'll say too, Pete, there had been all sorts of worry before the series started that there was going to be the Star Trek theme as in universe music. We are in another place here. Who is playing this theremin music? It's at a wonderful TV film place of it's the music to the story that we are watching. It's not Sam's personal dreaming up of the theme. You know, like like much in this episode, it is both there and not there. It is both and none. It's one and the other. But Sam will succeed on her terms, and she closes the communication onto the makers. Which there you go, choosing your own path, choosing your becoming, making choices for yourself, even though the emissary has been told there is a prescribed path.
And then we get the voice of Benjamin Sisko. This not recorded for this episode. Avery Brooks put out a an album of spoken word poetry that they got his permission to use here, and the track is called "Here."
Though the episode ends, we have the on screen text, "Thank you, Avery," and then icing on the cake beyond it, to have the end credit music be the D Space Nine theme. Just what a wonderful outing here.
Red alert. All hands stand to battle stations.
Pete, we have a tactical analysis of this week's threats. Let's start with the greatest one of them all, outfits seen in the first episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yes. Tell me you know nothing about the history of Star Trek without saying it.
Yeah, it's bonkers on so many levels, including it's a style that Gene Roddenberry came up with, approved, along with William Ware Tice, who made all the costumes for classic Trek and first two seasons of Next Generation. So does it get more authentically Star Trek than what the guy who made Star Trek did in Star Trek? But yeah, I will say this, Pete. I appreciate that the episode made no story mention of it. It's because it's the Star Trek future where
Hmm.
who cares? That was Gene's message. Who cares? But Pete, take us to a slightly more tangible threat here, that of diplomacy.
Both for Sam, for Kelrek, um, the idea of bridging across cultures, right? The ultimate idea with Star Trek. Um, she as an emissary trying to understand what happened to Cisco. Is this a path she can go down? Is she up to it? Is she able to do it? And Kelrek preparing with the Alpharade for that meeting to try to do that, and making some inroads with Ake and the other professors at the academy.
Pete, I have some questions about that storyline. However, let's use our long range sensors to scan for some theories. So, Pete, my theory laden question for you is, was this whole Kelrek dinner thing? Yes, Ake picks up the banner of it for a comedic B story in what is a rather heavy A story: faith, science, life, death, dad here, dad not, all of that. Do you think that we see this meeting of the other academy? Is this set up for a future episode?
I don't know that it is. I think it's more meant to humanize him in a way we hadn't to this point. You referenced the B story, right? You clearly needed a little bit more for this episode. Why not do that in tandem with the theme, with the idea of diplomacy with these emissaries that you're bringing up. So I think meant more just in terms of encasing it in this episode.
Pete, let's circle back to maybe the most important character in this entire series. I'm talking about Cadet Kyle. Do you think he's going to switch from War College to the Academy at any point?
I mean, they're clearly playing up a romance between Jaden and Kyle, right? And I think too the idea that we're going to get Tarima at Starfleet Academy eventually, right? Like it kind of has to happen. How they're going to choose to play through the War College thing, I think eventually becomes a situation of it's Starfleet Academy. It's not
Hmm.
War College. Like you incorporate them, you fold it in. They're using the same um, spaces as was made very clear to us now. It's that bug becomes a feature, right, of the plant, that the prank will turn into the thing that history will look back that it was a prank between them. It was a source of rivalry that ultimately allowed them to come together.
Refresh my memory, Pete. Was was this show ordered as 2 seasons, 20 episodes, or was the renewal after the fact?
The renewal came during the filming of the first season.
Okay. So here'd be my thought. We're halfway through this season. If I'm in the writing room way back when, yes, at some point we do the merging of the two schools into one Starfleet Academy. I would say it's not a season one story. If you get the renewal, maybe it's a season two story. You get that early renewal, maybe that then becomes something put into season two. I think it's too good a source of conflict for now. Let that let that run through until it runs dry, until you've had enough with my side, your side. And I'll probably be wrong. That's probably going to be a fixture of episodes 8, 9, and 10. And by episode 10, we say, and we will be one academy. Right, Vice Chancellor Kelrek? Yes, Chancellor Ake. For now, we are together. But either way, it's a coming. I would just say maybe not quite yet. One more question from me, Pete. Genesis references her father's, the admiral, her father's understanding of the Cisco story, the missing body, still MIA, and all that. Is her dadmiral a history buff, or is he long lived, or was that just a line there to give Sam some input in the whole? He's dead. He's alive. It's faith. Like that whole discussion in the dorms.
People don't understand how much each episode has to service, right? And you have to constantly remind the viewer of characterization of backstory, particularly in these early episodes, so that, all right, hey, how do we underscore a point? How do we get a characterization for Genesis? Oh, hey, her dad knows this. She got this information. Remind the viewer, her father's an admiral. Let's incorporate this point from a place of a logical source.
And I guess the jury is still out if we meet dad. Again, I feel like that's another thing. It's a when, not an if. And when you're in the writing room, okay, is this the episode? No, this is the episode where we're going to focus on Sam. Okay, and is do we do it two episodes from now? No, that's the one where there's the power outage and they're all trapped in the woods. But it's a thing you can reach for. Maybe not, break glass in case of emergency, but it's just something that you get to when you get to. Um, it's nice to see it built in. It's nice to see them also not racing towards it as story business.
We have the idea of task and its future. Sam as the emissary, noted as well a future emissary to the Federation, like the sort of long term path, but clearly an ambassadorial role here. Um, to do that. What is Task's future? And really, they set up the situation that she could potentially be pulled from the academy at any moment.
Yeah, first and foremost, I'm a little confused if she's not acting like an emissary now. Okay, it's more fact finding and report back, but it seems I don't want to quite say that the story seemed to be playing fast and loose with her status. It just seems to me like isn't she doing emissarial things now? Question mark. But fine, there's a greater future where she's whatever. Maybe the makers imagine she graduates the academy and then she, as you say, Pete, she's ambassador and she's this and that. Okay, fine. Um, I do like this notion that she could be pulled back. Again, it also might be a character, break glass in case of needing story. Um, because I mean, first of all, I can't imagine them actually pulling her from the production of the show, but it could. It's an interesting. I wouldn't quite call it a loose thread, but it's an interesting place that things could be explored. Um, or is it close ended? She hangs up on them. She now has taken her greater sense. It could be a situation that we don't need to return to it story wise, but it's something to keep an eye out for.
It's a pinch point, right? Like something that you could take, you could leave, but clearly pressure can be exerted there. Um, Got to call out the production, Matt. When we get Durham's file, it says he's a science major, but he wears red for command.
Ah, that's a fair criticism there. Plus, we've heard him talk about his desire for command. Um, Pete, could I split the story, baby, the following way? Maybe whoever made the graphic, and the graphics tend, in this day and age, the graphics tend to be treated as on-screen canon. We've seen that in Strange New Worlds, where we've gotten some character information before it's officially stated. Captain Patel's first name comes to mind. So, what if, Pete, in the next couple episodes, what if by the end of the season, he has a reflection and says, you know what, I am best served to be the science guy, to be the best science guy I can be, not constantly be the, mom and dad say I have to be the best and be the leader and be number one at everything. I can be the number one science guy who takes orders from a captain. So maybe it's taking information from a future story status, and it just kind of slipped through. So that's here we are in theories. It's a theory to watch out for.
Certainly could be. Um, Interesting how they've noted the passage of time, that the semester is nearly over. We're 97 days in. You consider that we're halfway through the first season. Uh, you know, if if the show has a long, healthy run, is that considered 4 seasons? Right? Do you give a season for each year at the academy? What that potentially looks like. I mean, you could certainly flash forward. You could tease things out. It is a science fiction show, um, but that we've locked in these particulars at this point.
Yeah, I really like what you are proposing, which is, this is not some, obscure show that, oh, maybe it does the one season, maybe it does two. I mean, it is Star Trek. Um, to have the vision to say, we have a 4-year plan, and if this happens to be the biggest hit since ever, guess what? We do each season as a half semester. Okay, if you need to speed it up, a la the way Strange New Worlds is concluding, oh man, the third and final season is now 12 episodes long, and the first 6 are year 3, and then, 1 year later, okay, as we're picking up the debris, now it's our senior year.
The
Um,
Vulcan exchange
yeah.
program.
Um, And if we are going to look into the future and say a potential model for these shows, fine, there's all this streaming data to suggest the audience doesn't want, or the audience doesn't stick around for longer runs and blah, 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 blah. But maybe you can do a spin off reboot thing, which is to say, if they do a Kirk's Enterprise show with the same sets and some of the same cast and crew, and okay, Academy could do that too, that after 4 years you go, and now it's Star Trek, Darum's first mission, or that sort of thing. Pete, I'll propose you one better. Okay, I'm thinking of in my formative TV viewing years. Okay, rather famously, first season of Beverly Hills 90210 was not much of a hit,
Mhm.
and then they immediately went into production for the second season and immediately cranked out like 8 episodes for that summer. And it became a huge
Yes.
hit in the summer, and that the characters were having summer adventures. So how about this? Could we do some sort of, let's bring back short treks or standalones or whatever. Let's have some sort of Starfleet Academy summer vacation or Starfleet
Break
Academy summer break.
series. Yeah,
And even if
that
it's
could
just
work.
like, here's the one Genesis episode where she's out doing whatever, and here's the this and the that. If you gave it to me as 4 episodes, because whatever, Darren and Sam and Kyle, they're all going to the moon for summer vacation. Great, make that the one episode. Um, so come on, Skydance Paramount, let's think outside the box and do some daring things here.
Interesting that the Guardian of Forever got the shout out here after having done that with Discovery.
You would think, Pete, for what I read online, Starfleet Academy is a show that actively hates Star Trek and actively hates Star Trek fans. for all that hate, yeah, that scene, the Guardian of Forever, and all those references there seems to be pretty loving and reverential and respectful of Star Trek. Um, and yeah, great to see that the tale of the Guardian of Forever is still being kicked around, even with its, I was gonna say, multiple stories. I know we have experienced those stories. Does do d- does does the average person know about the Discovery stuff on with the Guardian of Forever, or was that classified or secret or alternate something? I can't quite remember.
I don't know if the discovery experience of it and sending Giorgio back, but definitely Kirk's experience, right?
Yeah, oh yeah,
And everything that happened there with the Enterprise. So, and it is that depiction of it, albeit modernized, not with the old effects that would jar with the current camera technology. Um, that being said, too, the idea of the makeup and reaching for the original Trill makeup here with Professor Isla.
yeah. I know that the Memory Alpha entry leans on her Cardassian background a bit, which is there, and I think that some people, I think here's what the show is trying to do, because it's not the best makeup I've ever seen. However, the original Trill makeup was also not the best design. So I suspect that what they were trying to do, obviously, there's the whole the hair is down, it hides the spots. Okay, that's all fair ground. I think that the biological, or which is say the non symbiote slug, right? I think is meant to be a Cardassian Trill, mom and dad origin, etc. And it's pulling on some of that original Trill makeup there, which again is not a great design, but it kind of goes well with the Cardassian stuff. And most of all, it hides the reveal at the end, because you're not. It's not as obvious as you look like Tawny Newsome with her hair down. Oh wait, you hid the spots the entire time. That feels kind of okay. That's a trick, but whatever. Um, the fact that we are evoking some of that original Trill design here, along with Cardassian background, I feel like it just adds to some of the really wonderful sleight of hand that the episode gives us.
To dip back into the next generation, right? Like that, the host episode, and take that design from there. Again, proving yourself to the criticism, you know nothing about Star Trek. Wait,
Yeah,
wait, we're not just going to go to Deep Space Nine, okay? We're going to go to the original appearance of this species and integrate that into the current design. Um, has there been a little too much hybridization of species? I don't know that that's a fair criticism, given that we're 900 years in the future, right? Like Vulcans and Romulans and all these other species, Klingon and Jem'Hadar, like that is to be expected.
from a social progress, I would agree, and also I think, look, we counted our blessings in the next generation era. That, for example, wow, we're getting more awesome Klingons. I don't think A, there's that. B, I think that we were watching less critically for production type stuff. At a certain point, you sit and go, man, the Klingons keep dressing the way they did in 1977, or 1978, 1979, whatever the motion picture was. It's almost like they're reusing the exact same 8 costumes over and over until they're threadbare, and then they do a replacement because it's the same Klingon stuff that's been used for 25 years. So my point is, Pete, I appreciate on this end, obviously some of the costumes are probably long since, dried out, moth eaten, whatever it is, but from the makeup perspective, from the costume perspective, yeah, let's mix it up a little here. And if you're not going to go to the trouble to create brand new aliens for, let's say, this one shot so far, um, for the Tawny Newsome character, okay, great, make her a hybrid, so it's both a little recognizable but also new. I mean, that's the whole undercurrent of all of this. Make it new, make it old. Um, yeah, it's again, I think there's a social aspect, and there's also just a this we don't need to spend all this time and all this money and all this R&D to sit and go, we need somebody to look kind of alien but also kind of familiar for like 4 scenes, versus creating the brand new, best topper of the Westmore era makeup and all that.
The setup here that there'll be further adventures with Isla Dax. Yeah, hey, sign up for my class next year. We got to return to that, right? That's got to be a major piece of season two.
Major or minor, if nothing else. Pete, it's so amazing that the writer of the episode would like the guest actress of the episode to return here, but it's set
You
up
know the
that way.
story about the role, right?
I don't know that I do. Do tell it, please.
So the role was written for a Trek alum,
Uh,
and Kurtzman told Newsom, "You should play this."
was it written for a particular Trek alum in mind, or just
Yes,
was
but
it
I
Terry
have not
Farrell?
seen. I have not. I don't think it was for Terry Farrell. It doesn't preclude that it wasn't. Although it'd be super weird to have Terry Farrell play Dax again, but playing a different Dax. Like, could it be done? Yeah. um, I just don't know that you do it that way.
Um, I think it's a really heads up behind the scenes production thing. Because look, at the end of the day, they're here to entertain us. They're here to give us thrills and chills and this and that, the other. To say whoever we're going to get for this, yeah, it's a Star Trek alum. And I mean, Pete, we kind of were prefiguring this earlier in the season, right? For who could be playing the Dadmiral character, just in terms of it could be whoever in whatever kind of makeup, and we'll go, oh man, it's so great that they got so and so. And here they've gone and done it. We've just added the layer of the knowledge that the production kind of planned for it to be a nostalgic bit of casting in an episode that is playing with nostalgia. So I would like to say, Pete, though the production gets most of the credit, we get like 45% of the credit because we've been circling this idea for 5 episodes of the podcast.
Interesting point in the Cisco Museum, the display about Cisco and the anti-replicator food movement.
Um, I must confess, Pete, is that new to Star Trek, or is that from a storyline that I'm forgetting? I don't remember.
I don't remember it specifically. I mean, obviously, the idea that he grew tomatoes and what a big thing it was for him to be a cook. I mean, people make a big deal about Pike. Again, Cisco, the OG, man, he was doing this before anybody else. Everybody else got it out of a replicator.
Um, I wonder if it's maybe meant to be some sort of meta commentary here, like, man, Cisco just wanted to grow his own tomatoes in his quarters and put him in like stews and stuff, and now it's turned into a whole religious tenet of like, oh, you believe in the Cisco, but you still eat replicated food. You're not really of the Cisco. Like, again, I'm presenting it kind of humorous and also maybe a little bit pessimistic as to divisions of religious views. I appreciate that the episode doesn't go there, but maybe it's that slight hint of like, oh, you don't follow this dogma versus that dogma. You're a weirdo.
Speaking of dogma, on the tomato debate, Newsom, as she was writing this episode, uh, determined, okay, I'm going to write about Gumbo. I got to make it. And that's where the tomato stuff came from. Um, she was making a roux for it a couple days ago as she was speaking online about the making of this episode.
I love the Tawny Newsome who could have uh her Star Trek experience could have been, I recorded stuff at home for 2 years, and then I went into recording booths for 2 years, and then they flew me to San Diego like 2 or 3 times, not four because of COVID. They flew me to San Diego, or train or car or whatever, a couple of times to promote it, and that's it for my Star Trek experience. Now, convention circuit, make me tens of thousands of dollars a weekend anytime I want to go. I love that instead she's thrown herself into not just the writing end, but like to write about a character that cooks. You must cook. Um, I have underestimated Tawny Newsome, and I mean, look, we were all a bit surprised when we saw her having an associate producer credit for the series. You want to say, oh, they brought her in to be a producer for the episode she wrote. Okay, we've seen that before, but she's clearly made connections. She clearly is doing stuff with her connections creatively and not just on the acting end. Long live Tawny Newsome, and let's bring on more.
Yeah, she is a force here. Um, who's not a force, Matt, is Krebs with more Talaxian furfly hijinks.
Yeah, you had pointed it out to me. How this has been an ongoing thing. You pointed out in the last couple podcasts. I would hope at this point we're going to do something with it, because if it's just a thing to give Stephen Colbert, funnies, like I'm now officially with the whole Muir Woods thing, it's now officially too much. It would be pleasant enough for him to be just the voice of, get to class and let's do this and kind of fun stuff in the background, but it's becoming a distraction. If there's a payoff for Krebs and the fleas, then it's less of a distraction retroactively. So let's do the right thing here.
Nice to get a Dr. Lewis Zimmerman shout out from the doctor here. I mean, you consider how much this episode touched on um, in total.
Yeah, and I would be curious to know. I have all sorts of like behind the scenes questions. Like, does Robert Picardo remember that distinction? Not that he's aged or can't remember things, but he's worked so much. It was so long ago. Is he like, yeah, I did scenes with Avery, and somebody had to remind him? No, you didn't. That was such a fun crossover in Deep Space Nine. Because it's of course you can't have the holographic doctor that can't get home and all of that. I'll mention this, Pete. I just happened to be on the Memory Alpha page for Dr. Lewis Zimmerman. Do you know where he was born?
I do not.
Not just New Jersey, but Grover's Mill, New Jersey. That, of course, the site of the Orson Welles War of the Worlds. Mars attacked at Grover's Mill. So just layers and layers here for Dr. Zimmerman. And was he really only in the one? He was really only in one episode. I feel like he was in more than he was in two. I take that back. Pardon me. He was in four: one Deep Space Nine, three Voyager. But just the one Deep Space Nine. I thought I remembered more than that. But yeah, love his inclusion here, certainly.
And then, is there something more to Ake and Kelrek here?
I hate to keep beating this drum of the show is banking potential future things as opposed to like, oh man, when Caleb gets the 5 pieces of the gem, then he can communicate. We're only at 3, so it's a clear story clock. I think there might be, and I think it's a smart show that says big ensemble here. If we never give Ake a romance, great. If we want to leave the door open to it, okay, here is her only peer, right? She's a boss. She's not having romances with anyone under her. This isn't CBS of 10 years ago. So we'll play it professionally. He's the only one where there could be something. So let's explore that a little bit. And that is something else where, again, I hate to be using negatives like rainy day or break glass in case of emergency. It's a place where you could go where you say, okay, you know what? Now is the time to advance that story, to do something with it. It's about the characters here. And I think sometimes recent Star Trek Discovery era forward, sometimes they're a little too focused on the meat of the overall season mission and the challenge here and showing the science and all those things are important to Star Trek, but it's about the characters, and they're giving us character stuff here, if only for the future. With that, Pete, let's open Hailing Frequencies.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
Pete, we start with Twitter or X. By the way, I heard an official person call it Twitter or X just in the last couple days, so there you go. The poll being, how did you rate this rate this episode. Did people give it one frowny face defiant? See what they did there, Pete? That got 0%. Was it two talking heads? Everyone talks so slow. That's a Tony Newsom line. That's also got 0%. Did it get three fires? Scorching. Like squirts and scants. I'm proud of that one. Or four, that got 28.6%. Or 4 stars, celestial. I was on a roll here. That got 71.4%. Some replies here. First one from It's Twitter Not Life at KCLYLE1. Very cool episode. It would have been great if they had gotten others from Deep Space Nine to make appearances via holograms. Kira, O'Brien. But seeing Jake aging was great. Newsom's Dax was awesome, and the Brooks voiceover was greatly appreciated. So many questions about the photonics. I would say, let's ask those questions. Send us an email, phantasticgeek@gmail.com, with those questions about photonics. We can all discuss next week. Next tweet comes from Spider-Ham Lincoln at TessLC139. Pete, it's an acrostic poem, a shorter one, but a heartfelt one. Cisco always matters.
Yes.
Sam. And then last tweet comes from Terry Womack at Terry Womack. I'm always just, Terry, what great symmetry there. He says, wow, finally a fully Star Trek worthy episode, paying tribute to so many and the return of Dax. It got really interesting. The story possibilities around Dax and the intervening 800 years are a series on their own. Nice work on this episode. 5 out of 5 here. And Terry with finally and fully using the PH.
Absolutely. I mean, to the point of bringing in other actors, you didn't want to overshadow the return to Cisco, right? Like, so though it would have been nice to incorporate those others, that you had Sirach Lofton, that you had the blessing of Avery Brooks here, that's got to be the beginning and the ending of the conversation, at least as far as this episode's concerned.
Well, I say let's have a second half season 1 episode where she's like, oh man, I'm getting ready for when I take Professor Dax's class next season on Star Trek Starfleet Academy, I've been doing some research, and look, I found these files, and we can get a little hollow O'Brien, hollow Kira, and so forth. So the possibility certainly remains. Now, Pete, normally we have a tweet from James Killen, and no James Killen tweet this week. To the email inbox we go, where we have an email from James Killen who says, hello, Jets. Or in fact, subject line, Starfleet Academy prediction. So buckle up, Star Trek V poster style. Hello, gents. Just wanted to throw this out here, but keep it off socials. I think Caleb's mom killed Genesis's mom while she was stealing the food. Her parents could have been married, junior officers, and now dad is an admiral and he is widowed. The conflict would be endless. Wow.
That's really good.
That is real. That is. James goes on to say, this week is going to be an all-time sci-fi classic. Can't wait for this weekend's pods. James, bowing down to that as a theory. That's when it's, again, some of the best writing is when we, the audience, go, duh, that's so obvious. Except it wasn't obvious until they reveal it, because then another way to say it's so obvious is that fits so organically, but I'm still blown away.
And drives conflict.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's awesome.
Another email here from Dustin, who says a lot of digital ink has been shared on series Acclimation Mil from creators and fans about what this episode is. It's just incredible. I can't do any of it justice and won't even try. So here's my off-the-cuff raw reaction. Carolyn and I are in our first full rewatch of Deep Space Nine, just working through episode by episode. On Wednesday night, we rewatched the season 3 episode where Dax borrows the bodies of all her friends for the ritual opportunity to meet with all her former hosts. Odo plays Curzon and almost refuses to change back to regular Odo, and Quark describes the motherly experience of breastfeeding. It's a great episode, especially for us, as it lovingly portrays in an approachable way, some past life stuff, while the wife and I believe in, even as we navigate our linear life. Then we wake up on Thursday early to watch this SFA episode, which we knew from some early screener reviews was going to be strong. We enjoy the watch as we see our Cardassian Beckett Mariner just crush her appearance and performance as future Dax. The small synchronicity there between the random DS9 episode we watched as we went to bed with all the Dax hosts and the new SFA episode being our own fun, tiny, lovely, unique experience to enjoy. In the past 2 days, I've read some really powerful reactions to the episode that bring out some great and intense emotions for me, even if from people I've never met and don't have a ton in common with. I can't possibly match the impact of some of these amazing reactions, praising what this episode did for them in life. I'm amazed that for so many people, this was the latest time that Star Trek overwhelmingly and positively affirmed their life path or long held belief. What I'll end this note to you guys with is that when I opened the new email draft to write this, my inbox showed 47 unread emails, which made me know how I had to send in a note. Many, many thanks for sharing your voices and takes on this amazing shared experience that is Star Trek. All the best, Dustin. And what a lovely email there.
Yeah, thank you, Dustin. Yeah, again, I come back to the utter care that the creative team have for this franchise, for these characters, for Avery Brooks as a performer, right? Like, um, and was it a lot to expect they could pull him out of retirement and do this? I think they handled it in just such a delicate and well written way. You don't feel the absence. It's enhanced in that aspect.
Particularly since so many people have come back to Star Trek. Um, my guess would be, off the top of my head, probably 75%, uh, and that might even be a low number. 75% of the people from Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine have come back in some capacity, short, small, whatever it is. Avery Brooks, for whatever his reasons are, has said, "Great time behind me, not looking back, not not returning in any capacity." And I think this was the episode where they said, "Yeah, we're not trying to lure him back. Let's just say why we want to lure him back, and it's not for views or clicks. It's to do justice to all that he gave to Star Trek." And yeah, a lovely moment there. Pete, what feedback do you have on your end?
To the Fantastic Geek subreddit, Matt at r/Fantastic Geek, Red Dog 65 writes in just 3 points for comment this week. Public speaking. Jaden is part of a family of five on what appears to be a sparsely populated planet. It seems reasonable that he has never been in crowds and likely never done any public speaking. His extreme level of anxiety makes sense. Two, I don't know how regional this is, but there was a time when school cafeteria pizza was always rectangle because it was either pre made, frozen pizza, or was made on commercial kitchen sheet pans. That being the case, their pizza is sort of a nod to school cafeteria food. The decision to put all their food in stainless steel bento boxes from the container store makes the rectangular pizza fit the boxes. Three, where was our Betazoid cadet? He should have been in tune with all the emotions of his fellow cadets, one of whom is his roommate in this episode. It should be noted this was commented on episode four's post. Until next time, live long and prosper. Emoji.
I think he's shed some light on the where production meets story regarding these important pizza matters. Um, my goodness, as
I
for the
get it. Fantastic Geek, headquartered in an area of the world that does pizza well and right. You find an octagonal steel box and like, yeah, it's clear this is written by people that don't know good pizza.
the show, not the Redditor. Um,
Yes.
as for the inclusion of Betazoid, that whole thing. I mean, I'm reminded of,
Occam.
well, true. But I'm just reminded of there's probably 200 times where Counselor Troy or another Betazoid should have sensed it but didn't for story purposes. So, like, I would just say you have somebody who can sense emotions and read thoughts. It's it's a great tool when you want to use it, and it's a um, great reminder of the limits of writing when you have this superpower that doesn't get used time after time because of the nature of storytelling. So I'm not excusing it. I'm just giving the context of that's that's how it is sometimes with a Betazoid character.
Kips247 writes, fifth episode. I never really got into DS9, mainly because of the weird prophet religious stuff. So this episode didn't really do it for me. So would be good to hear your thoughts about it. I think it was a good episode for Sam's character development, but the DS9 fan service stuff felt crowbarred in. The dinner meeting practice and bar scenes were a bit cringy and didn't really add much for me.
I would agree that there's a a through line of Deep Space Nine is doing things differently than the Next Generation Voyager, which was not always appreciated while Deep Space Nine was on. Um, yeah, I don't necessarily love the Prophet stories from Deep Space Nine, but that nonetheless is part of their story. Um, I will say I feel like yes, there was a fan service component to this episode. If this episode wanted to explore the notion of faith and, for lack of a better word, science, or faith and atheism, God versus no God, I think it did it in an interesting way while not turning it into the episode where Star Trek tries to find God, but of course he can't. So what does God need with the starship? It much like the search for the Cisco, it has no answer because there is no answer. So it's about the journey. I found this to be a compelling journey, um, and I would disagree with the notion of fan service versus acknowledging legacy. But I guess everyone's mileage may vary. With that, Pete, let's go to the listener line where JT Atkins has left a message at 732-707-1815. So fire away, JTA.
Hey, Matt and Pete, this is your old pal JT Adkins calling because I miss my fantastic friends and just haven't had time to write comments. So I just wanted to leave this message and maybe I can concisely write some feedback for this week's Starfleet Academy episode. This was a great show overall. Overall, some of the like cutesy sexual jokes and stuff like that doesn't do much for me. There's some other things I wouldn't have done with the show. But you know what? They didn't hire me to make the show. And even though there are little things, I'm like, it's great. It's refreshing. It's definitely Star Trek. It feels like, especially this week, but really every week, it feels like a love letter to Star Trek. All while it's also going in different directions than the other shows have gone. And I think that's an amazing balance that they've achieved, and they're doing a great job of it. And every week, I can't wait to see the next show. So, this week's episode, awesome. Here's a few observations. I know you got to be a certain age for this, but at the beginning, when Sam is doing her report, I thought, is she Mork? I was waiting for her to say, Mork calling Orson, come in, Orson. But I'm good with that because she's not going to be Mork every week doing a report back to Orson. Wasn't that what the thing on Mork? Anyway, so the some things in the show that were awesome. The dinner where they were rehearsing the dinner was brilliant. Really, the megaphones, the fact that it doesn't go well, and then ultimately that Kelrec is kind of out of it, and then ultimately we humanize him a little bit, right? Because he learned a lesson, and I thoroughly enjoy the contrast between Kelrec and Chancellor Holly Hunter. I'll get her character's name wrong. I love the contrast there. I think it plays great, and the two actors play it great, and it's amazing. This week, Jake! Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, sure. I'm a fan. It was great to see the actor, again, I always mispronounce his name, but Really. I mean, the first time he appears, it's like, oh, that's fun. They did a recording. It's Jake. And we got to see him again, and that's great. But then the second time he appears, that conversation is so well written, so well acted, so poignant, so, it drives the character forward, but it's also just heartfelt and insightful. Oh, just great. Also, by the way, the fact that Tawny Newsome is Dax, tremendous, brilliant. Can Sam please start calling Tawny Newsome's character Old Man? I mean, I wouldn't mind. But then the only negative is, gosh, my only little complaint, Paramount Plus, the interface, gosh, I would have liked to have listened to the closing credits, which use the Deep Space Nine music, but no, I can never get it to let me watch the closing credits. Ugh. Oh well. Anyway, that was great. Thanks, and looking forward to next week's show and to the podcast.
Yeah, on the topic of the Paramount Plus user interface, I log on to watch this episode and it's like slow to click. And, I have good internet. I have a newer Fire Stick. And it's like, okay, it's mildly frustrating, but I'm used to it. And then, Pete, I'll mention we don't, in my house here, we don't always have a Peacock subscription, though we've gotten it for the Olympics and for the Super Bowl and haven't had it for months and months and months. Boom, re-up that. And it glides along, and it's like, I want to find just Olympics. Look, there's the Olympics. Everything I want.
It remembers that you used subtitles previously instead of every single time I go on Paramount Plus, I've got to tell it again to put the subtitles on.
When I watched this episode on Thursday, I watched it twice. When I watched it on Thursday, I think I had clicked over the credits, or there was or I didn't click over it. Regardless, at a certain point, I realized the screen didn't look right, and there was like at the top portion, it was kind of slightly grayed out, as though you were going to have, like when you'll click on, like to turn on the subtitles, there's a slight graying in front of the behind the graphics and whatnot. Regardless, there was that. So I said, oh, let me, maybe I'm imagining myself. Let me turn on the captions. It wouldn't let me out of that. So I had to stop the episode and restart it, which you'd think it would pick it up, but then it restart. And I'm sitting here going, why did this giant tech company that David Ellison's daddy owns, like, why can't we fix this app before they go headhunting for Warner Brothers? It makes no sense, because this is not how Disney Plus works, Prime works, Peacock works, HBO Max works. The freebies like Tubi and Roku, none of them are this bad. That said, Pete, what are some of the positives that that JT, pardon me, touched upon that we
completely co-sign that part of the further development and humanization for Sam, that she will either on her own or be invited to refer to Isla Dax as Old Man.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun waiting game to see how much, when, etc. do they bring back this version of Dax. Just because we've seen it with some of the other legacy characters. Reno's in some and not in the others. So what a great addition. And I started the podcast talking about, here they have all these, even just the recognizable cadet characters who don't get lines. Well, now we've added a professor character, and it's truly wonderful, as was JT's entire message. Pete, let's now roll into an audio message sent to our email, phantastic@gmail.com, by the incomparable Fred from the Netherlands.
Hello, Matt and Pete, and all listeners to Phantastic Geek. This is Fred from the Netherlands with a little feedback for Star Trek Starfleet Academy Season 1, Episode 5. Coming back to last week's podcast first, I forgot to say that I had fully seen it coming that the Klingons would accept the planet if it would have been in some kind of battle. Well, they organized that. This week's episode is, of course, a next character-centric episode. Not Jaden, but Sam. Every Star Trek nerd, of course, likes the connection to Deep Space Nine and to Benjamin Sisko. Actually, DS9 is one of my favorite Star Trek series. We even had 16 or 17 years a cat called Jadzia after Jadzia Dax. So that was nice to see a Dax coming back in this episode as well. So a lot of fan service here, which could be cheesy, but as a nerdy fan, I of course like it. So nice to see the real Jake Sisko back, played by Sarah Clofton, of course, the original actor from DS9. Of course, we have the Terima Celeb kiss here, what we were all waiting for, possibly. The shippers, surely. And I'm happy that they didn't postpone that until the end of the season or something like that, and postponing this on and on and on. I did not care too much about the whole thing between Ake and Kelrek, Jet Reno and the Doctor. That was a bit kind of boring. Okay, looking forward to next week and hope for a next character-driven episode. I hope it will be Genesis. Very interested about her backgrounds. Okay, that was all. Greetings, all the best. Fred from the Netherlands.
Great observation there from Fred that the show is advancing on the Caleb Terima romance. It wasn't something I was consciously aware of. I mean, I've seen it. I saw how they kissed and so forth. But I think it speaks well of the show because, we've spent some time talking about they've banked things that they could return to in the future. Yes, let there be a crosstown rival romance here. Let's advance on that. If by the end of the season they're a beautiful, happy couple, wonderful. What's our next potential story thing? Okay, if you need to, there's the breakup. If you want to go for that sort of drama. If you just want to have them be together and stay together and be a happy, functioning couple, great. Then that frees up story stuff for other things for other people. So great observation there on Fred's part that they're making progress on this. It's not all the big giant middle where we can't possibly advance anyone.
Fred says, "Give me Genesis."
And Pia, I have to confess, I have no idea what next week's episode is about. Well, let me just ask you this: yes, no question. Is it another character-centric episode?
Yes.
Oh, well, there you go. Fingers crossed then.
Last of the pre-screened episodes.
Interesting indeed. Well, Pete, our ongoing Starfleet Academy journey, our voyage, could not be made possible without those who support us on patreon.com/phantasticgeek. So our continued thanks to everybody who helps us out there.
Everybody who contributes gets access to exclusive content, all sorts of levels to choose from. Get yourself over to patreon.com/phantasticgeek. Just $1 a month gets you in. Can't contribute right now? You can go to Apple Podcasts where for free you can leave us a rating, you can leave us a review, you can help us out just as much.
And Pete, let's keep the pop culture conversation going. Here we are at the midst of Star Trek. We have Marvel next month. Marvel movies coming in the near future. Just exciting times all across the board. DC movie this summer. How can people be in touch with you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Threads, on Blue Sky, at Peter, PIETERJ Ketalar, KETELAAR, 12,600 followers. Can't be wrong.
And while I'm personally on Twitter as Looking Back Lost, do be in touch with the podcast. Comment on phantasticgeek.com. Check us out on Twitter, Threads, Gmail, Blue Sky, Instagram. But wait, Pete, there's even more.
Facebook.com/phantasticgeek with the PH, all one word, like it today. And make sure you stop by the Phantastic Geek subreddit at r/phantasticgeek.
Well, Pete, can't wait to talk about the next episode of Star Trek Starfleet Academy next Star Trek Sunday as we just enter, oh my goodness, Pete, the second half of the first season. How time does fly. With that, I will say adios to all listeners and give you the final word.
Class dismissed.